Andrew Yang. I mean, this guy
thanks, Kristin.
is amazing. He's doing good stuff for our country, good stuff for crypto. Very excited. The title of this is How Governments Can Empower People. I think we also want to talk a little bit about how people can discover their power in engaging with government. But Andrew is all over all of these topics. So maybe we could start, Andrew. Can you talk a little bit about your 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗧? Can you talk about the Forward Party? Can you talk about 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀? I feel like you have a lot of great projects going on. Maybe just level set and start with that for everyone.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, everyone, it's great to be here. Thanks again for coming out. So when I ran for president of the United States, one of the first communities that rallied behind me was the cryptocurrency community. I think a lot of people in this world were building the future. They knew how profound an impact technology was having. And more recently, people have become concerned that the US government has set its sights on crypto and is going to be issuing regulations that may or may not be incredibly well thought out. So this is what Kristin's doing a lot of the time, is trying to educate lawmakers and policymakers. And so two things then came together for me. One is that I think these technologies and tools can become one of the most powerful weapons against poverty that we've ever seen. How many of you all agree with that sentiment? Right? And two, the US government may or may not have the most enlightened, sophisticated approach to crypto. So then I thought, well, hey, I've spent the last couple of years learning about how Washington functions. I started a lobbying organization that's been fighting for anti-poverty measures like the enhanced child tax credit and other policies. And so I thought we should bring these two worlds together, where we should have our folks in Washington talking about Web3 technologies and tools and how they can broaden financial inclusion, give patients more security in their data, can solve real problems in the real world. So that became 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, which now has built this awesome community of activists and entrepreneurs who want to try and make a positive, wholesome case in DC, and it's going phenomenally well.
Yeah. No, I think it's wonderful. I mean, I know one of the things we work on at the Blockchain Association is trying to bring these arguments to policymakers in Congress. And, you know, quite frankly, up until I think recently, which might have something to do with you, people didn't believe us when we came in to talk about financial inclusion. And I think part of the problem is when you look at crypto today, you see some of these like very sophisticated DeFi applications that nobody can figure out how to use, and there isn't. It's been challenging to kind of convey the story about how this can help people. Like what is your team doing? What are they saying, and are they effectively being able to get this message through to policymakers?
So for those of you who don't know, the Blockchain Association is one of the most effective actors in this space. So Kristin's having these conversations all the time.
Still have work to do.
Well, we could easily have reversed this, where I interviewed Kristin, honestly. So I think what we're hearing and what you're hearing are probably similar, which is when you go to a member of Congress, first there are a couple of layers. I'm going to do some lobbying 101. It'll be fun. So you have the members of Congress, the representatives and the senators, but then you have their chiefs of staff, very important, and then you have their policy team and their legislative team. So you have a few layers within each office. And when you talk to them, right now, the primary message you get, so the primary emotions you get are something like confusion and skepticism would be, like, I think, the two most dominant sentiments.
Great place to start.
And then when you start talking to them about use cases, what they ask is they say, okay, show me, which I'm going to suggest is a relatively reasonable request. You know, if you say, hey, this is going to broaden financial inclusion, they'd be like, okay, show me where that's happening. And so I think it's on us, and this is one of the things that 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 is trying to implement with partners, is to have, let's say, a poor black community that right now is getting exploited by check cashing services or money lenders or pawn shops, and say that these technologies are giving them access to financial resources and a path forward in a much less exploitative way. And so if we can make that implementation real, let's say in Ohio or in, I'm picking districts where frankly they're important members of Congress, but if you could make this case in these communities. So the biggest lesson I think we have to learn is when you want someone to like you, what do? You have someone else say nice things about you. You know what I mean? Like, that's why it's always so impactful when someone introduces you and hypes you up. Heck, my entire presidential campaign, it was like, you know, like a lot of people hyping me up, which I'm very grateful for. So the Web3 community needs other people to speak on our behalf. You know what I mean? Like, you need civic leaders or nonprofit leaders or people whose constituents are benefiting from this going to members of Congress and saying, look, this is improving our lives, this is important to us. If you can do that, then you can start to dramatically shift the types of conversations we're having.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think having a coalition, having a diverse set of voices that aren't just crypto saying, of course this is good for you.
Really.
Hugely important. I do want to say, though, I think it's actually great that you call it 𝗣𝗿𝗀𝗃 because I feel like, you know, I worked as a staffer on Capitol Hill for 10 years and have been a registered lobbyist for a long time myself. And I feel like people often have such a negative connotation with that, when really what lobbying is advocating for something that you believe in. It's protected by the First Amendment. We should be celebrating this. So it made me happy to hear that you're willing to do that.
Well, Kristin, I just want to interject. My lobbying started with an Onion article in 2011 that I thought was hysterical. So this article said, the American people hire lobbyists to fight for their interests on Capitol Hill. And then there was like this picture of a guy in a suit being like, now they'll take us seriously. So I thought this was hysterical, but also brilliant. I was like, oh, we totally should do that. We should totally hire our own lobbyist. So that if you have people advocating for anti-poverty measures, my team in DC would actually tell the story. They'll be in a meeting with the senator or their chief of staff, and they'd go around the table and it'd be like, who do you represent? Like pharma, who do you represent? Telco. And then our guy would go and be like, we represent people who want to alleviate poverty in the US. And then everyone's like, you know, everyone like looks at him and it's like, oh, this is different. Being in those rooms on behalf of a community with generally altruistic motivations, believe it or not, like there's enough humanity left in DC where that actually still can make a big difference.
Well, let's shift a little bit. I'd love to kind of talk about the political landscape, particularly as it relates to crypto. And I think, you know, we've been doing this for a few years, and you know, it was kind of a small effort, and nobody really was taking us too seriously, and you know, we were knocking on all the doors, having all the conversations we had. But it wasn't until last summer when the Senate was considering this infrastructure bill,
totally.
Yes, that all of a sudden we realized there is a really passionate grassroots community of individuals who are building in this space, using products in this space that are super excited about it, that will mobilize and have a voice in Washington. So I would love to hear your thoughts about, you know, sort of the impact that has had with the partisanship around these issues, and sort of looking forward, is there a pathway where we can, you know, hopefully get some better policy outcomes because we have this community?
Oh yeah, that was a massive catalyst last year when the infrastructure bill came out and they inserted language around crypto. And why did they do that? Because they were looking to pay for stuff. You know, they like, hey, like, how can we get a lot of revenue in? Oh, you know, like, let's insert this language. And they were stunned by the firestorm, frankly, that ensued afterwards, where people came out of the woodwork being like, no, you have to have a much better approach. And that activated two very, very important groups. One, it activated the entire crypto community to be like, okay, we can't ignore DC anymore. And I'm sure, Kristin, you saw a massive spike in interest in people who wanted to work with you. But it also heightened the awareness in DC that this is a very potent, well-resourced community that they need to try and have a better approach to. And our goal right now should be to try and avoid having crypto be politicized in the US. Now, that's a very tall order because 98% of things get politicized now in the US, where if one side is for it, then the other side has to be against it. So right now, if you think about the two parties, the Republicans have generally like a more favorable orientation towards crypto because they tend to be a little bit more anti-regulation, a little bit more pro-business and the rest of it. And the Democrats, there's a little bit of native hostility for a number of reasons that I think are a little bit ill-informed. I think that there's a press treatment of crypto that is helping push the narrative in a certain direction that we should try and improve. So the goal has to be to try and avoid this dynamic. And again, it's a tall order because you can count on one hand the number of things that are not political footballs in the United States of America at this point. What are those things? I'll leave it to your imagination. What at this point is not politicized in American life?
I feel like poverty alleviation is politicized, so if that's politicized.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid that too.
But no, I feel like every once in a while there are these issues that both parties can come together and work on. And
even infrastructure got politicized this time.
Well,
it's crazy.
yeah,
I mean, that used to be very bipartisan.
Depends on how you define infrastructure, but I think crypto should be one of those things because there are so many great arguments that appeal to all sides of the aisle, and so yeah, we don't want this to be a Republican issue or a Democratic issue, but I think going back to last August, there were some calls around like maybe those of us working in this crypto space need to stop thinking about aligning with one party or another, and just really focusing on the policies that a given individual are doing and have a crypto voter. But you've obviously thought a lot about our sort of two-party system. You have ideas for a new party. Tell us about how all of that fits in, and if there's room for the crypto community in that effort.
So if you were to describe the politics of the people in this room or the crypto community, I think you would say that a lot of folks are apolitical, libertarian, independent. Is that a fair description? Yeah. And most people are not avid Democrats or Republicans. They just want stuff to work better. They just want solutions and the rest of it. And that, by the way, describes not just the crypto community. That describes tens of millions of Americans who don't feel like either party's exactly getting it right. And so I started the Forward Party to try and advance this positive, unifying third-party approach in American politics, which is something that at this point 62% of Americans want. And the crypto community is very, very highly represented in that group. I actually would say that the crypto community is kind of at the leading edge of it. And a lot of folks have been apolitical in crypto, but then they've become activated. And I can't tell you how many folks have come to me and said, I'm a one-issue voter, where it's like, as long as you're for effective treatment of crypto that doesn't push everything offshore, then I'm for you. And I will say, a lot of folks, how many of you all are from the US here in this room today? So I also am American, and I will say I have a very strong interest in trying to keep this energy and innovation and vitality in the US, because if the US comes down with heavy-handed treatment, we all know what's going to happen. Like, a lot of this energy is going to go offshore, and I want to keep that from happening. How many of you are with me on that? Yes. Yeah.
I mean, we are in the Bahamas right now, so I think that shows.
I was going to say something to that effect.
That shows the challenge that we have.
But I didn't want to.
Well, I mean, listen, I love being in the Bahamas. This is lovely for Kristin. I think it's sad for crypto that we have to come over.
Oh, no, me too.
But no, very happy to be here today. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about the presidential election. So, I think about, we had Donald Trump, who was not a fan of crypto, and neither was his Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin. We had to threaten to sue him and spend a lot of money on all these filings. I didn't actually get to file, but we were ready to do that. They were very bad. The Biden administration, and I say that as a lifelong Republican, by the way, the Biden administration's done a pretty nice job. They have this executive order out there. You've got Secretary Yellen saying we need to have, responsible innovation, and we want the U.S. to be an asset or a leader in digital asset innovation. I mean, this is such a lovely change of pace. What do you think going forward? What does 2024 look like? Who do we have emerging? Will there be a third-party candidate, perhaps, that comes in and carries the banner for crypto? Or how do you see that playing out? And I would just love to get your thoughts. I know it's hard to predict at this stage.
Oh, sure thing. So the Biden executive order said they want to get effective new rules out there in 210 days, which would be October. Now, why did they say October? Because they know they're going to lose Congress in November. Are they going to get these rules drafted before November? Probably not. Kristin, shake your head no. It's like, it's Washington, D.C. It's like, are they going to get it done? No. So that has some pluses and minuses. Let's say Republicans take Congress in November, which I believe will happen. Then I think you're going to see a lot of pro-crypto sentiment in the House in particular, but the Democrats will still control SEC, Treasury, like a lot of the most important agencies. And so you do not want it to be a situation where Republicans are pro, Democrats are against, and you end up with regulatory treatment that's not that positive. So that's the dynamic that I see as developing naturally that we have to try and actively remedy and fight against. When you ask about 24, what I'm hearing is that Donald Trump is raring to run again. I think if he does run, he will win the Republican nomination and wind up vying for the White House again. And the sentiment from within the Biden administration, or actually just within the Oval Office, is that Joe Biden feels responsible for defeating Trump, and if Trump runs, then he will run again. So you're looking at potentially a Trump-Biden rematch in 2024, combined age 159. And a poll just came out that said that 58% of Americans would like an alternative if those are the two candidates. How many of you would like to see an alternative if those are the two candidates? Now, and in terms of crypto, I joked at a dinner the other night that Donald Trump doesn't seem to like crypto, I think because he views it as competition. He just doesn't like competition. It's like, well, people love this thing? It's like, no, love me. So a third-party independent political movement, I think, overlaps perfectly with the crypto community, and I think that this is going to come to a head in 2024 if this is the field that shakes out, because there's like an opening a mile wide for anyone who seems moderate, under the age of 72, and wants to make a positive case. And I do think that this community is going to be at the forefront of that. So that's the way I see things very, very possibly laying out in 2024. Get him, oh, thank you.
Well, great. Well, I think we're about at time. Real quick, Andrew, how can people find out more about what you're doing? How can they get information from you? Where can they buy your books? Give us a quick way that people can stay in touch with you.
Well, sure thing. Go to 𝗤𝗿𝗲𝗀𝗏.com if you want to see what we're doing on the political side. For 𝗤𝗏3, it's 𝗤𝗏3.io. We also started a Web3 community for AAPI empowerment called 𝗤𝗿𝗍, 𝗤𝗿𝗍.xyz. So I'm doing events in New York and NFT NYC around that space. You can tell we're doing as many things as we can to try and make a strong case that this is going to be a big part of the future, and a future that DC has to try and understand and amplify instead of standing in the way of.
We have 30 seconds. One last question. Where's my $1,000?
All right. So that's the number one question I get walking the streets of New York or wherever. It's like, Yang, love you. Where's my $1,000? And then what I say to them is what I will say to you all. Man, I'm still working on it. Thank you all so much.
All right.